People who signed up for the Find Women in Your Area websites? What happened? Story 1. Back in around 2008, the 19-year-old me found himself on Craigslist talking to some woman who posted an ad titled something like, "Hot Momshell for Fun." Terrible idea in hindsight, but I was unbelievably horny and not thinking straight. We arranged for me to come to her place and she told me to go around to the back porch. It felt like there was a 50-50 chance I was either going to get laid or end up dead. I go through the screen door, and there she is. Very, very drunk. She's in shorts and a tank top, with no bra. She's thick, with big cocoa melons and dirty blonde hair. Actually pretty attractive. She hands me a beer, and we start chatting a bit. Apparently, her son and his friends are downstairs in the basement playing video games and blasting music. All I could hear was Hoobastank and 3 Days Grace echoing through the floorboards. So, we kept talking, and then she got down and just started giving me a blowy. I mean, it felt like she was trying to see if she could suffocate on my dong. So like any guy who has soloed off to belladonna corn, I began treating her face like a UFC opponent on the ground. After 10 or so minutes of that, she turned around and point-blank said, "Just put it in the back door," to which I did. I stuffed her back door like a Build-A-Bear for about 15 minutes before I was done. Then she got up, lit 2 cigarettes, never put any pants on, and we just sat there smoking and chilling for about half an hour. Then she asked me to return her favor, and I obliged. After she reached her big O, we said our goodbyes, and she went in. All in all, I was there for about an hour. Then I went home and played Halo 3. Before we continue, do us a quick favor. Smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. My old roommate used to set his Tinder age range from 38 to 55. We were 22-year-old degenerates and actually had quite a few adventures meeting momshells that way. Many of them were pretty well off and just looking to have fun. An old coworker went down some rabbit hole with these ads and ended up on a Russian wife site. He then traveled to Ukraine and she stole all of his money while he was sleeping. Story 3. Those websites are filled with spam bots pretending to be women. However, there actually are a few bored or neglected housewives on the more legit ones. Mostly they just flirt with the idea of meeting up then, flake, which I guess is not dissimilar to regular hookup sites and apps. But I did have an extended fling with a married woman that I met from one of those sites for a little while back in college. A bit homely, but I didn't care. I just wanted to get laid back then. She never wanted me to use protection, which I stupidly obliged to. It was hot, okay? But surprise, surprise, she got pregnant. I dipped, of course. And the husband never found out, as far as I'm aware. I still look her up on Facebook from time to time. The kid was of the special needs type. He's grown up now, and he actually uses Reddit under the username of the Laughing Joker or something cringy like that. True story. Story 4. I was in my mid-20s, finally living without roommates and all that. So, I decided to check out one of those dating websites. I matched with this insanely hot Hispanic mom, perfect skin, about 5 feet 2 inches tall compared to my 6 feet 1, and probably around 95 pounds. We talked once or twice, and somehow she agreed to come over. She brought a bottle of wine I had never tried before, and to this day I still drink it. I always remember her because of that. So, here's the thing. Banging hot mom in her mid-40s, with some beautifully enhanced breasts and skin tight all over. We're about to Netflix and chill. She's poured us both a couple glasses of wine, and I'm just sitting there thinking, what do you want to watch? While already imagining the night ahead. We browse through, and I pick Forrest Gump, hoping that I will get to pound her by the time the mom bangs the teacher. Well, we started messing around. She sips her wine, and I'm just over like a kid in a candy store tasting her cocoa melons. At this point, my dong was all up and ready. We were at the part of the movie, just before it reveals Forrest Gump's kid. She was lying on the rug, facing me with her back to the TV. Then she looked up, right as the scene came on, where he's about to ask if his son is like him. Then she just starts bawling. Like I was there pounding her like a rabbit, and she dead-a started crying. I paused and asked what's wrong. I was still inside though. Then she told me that her son was special needs but had recently passed away. I thought, oh crap. So I said, maybe we should stop then, but she said no. So of course, I just went right back at it. The whole time, tears were streaming down her face, and she kept running her hands over my chest while I was pumping it. I stopped again, and by this time, the credits were rolling. She asked if I could finish, so I went full 100 mph to get it over with. Then she just got up, got dressed, and headed out. I never saw her again. I still miss that lady. Story 5. So yeah, I clicked on one of those ads, and it redirected me to a different site with the same basic premise, an adult hookup site. I signed up using a Gmail address and a prepaid credit card that had $2 left on it. The basic membership was free. And it was legit. I found a chat room and started talking, got matched with a few women, and over the course of 1 year I ended up banging 5 of them. I was post-divorce from a dead bedroom situation, so I was sowing my wild oats, and they were down to bang. Number 6 was the real kicker though. Absolutely crazy in bed, with nothing she wouldn't do, and I fell for her hard. In the end, she turned out to be both emotionally and physically abusive. Story 6. I signed up through an ad like this. Before I even added a picture, I was messaged by 3 women. I live in a small country, so even the capital city wouldn't see that much activity on such an unpopular website, especially considering I didn't have any picture uploaded. I couldn't see their pictures because that was a premium feature. Also, after exchanging several messages, I couldn't read or send any more because that too was locked behind a premium feature. Now the funny part, the premium membership was insanely overpriced, something like $30 a week, but you could sign up for a 24-hour free trial by providing your credit card information. I used a fully drained debit card. They said the transaction was accepted, and that after refreshing, I'd have full premium features. But after refreshing, the site would take ages to load and kept throwing random errors, mimicking an overloaded server. Good thing my debit card was fully drained and about to expire before the next payday. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even considered clicking on such a link. Story 7. I got a lot of chat, lots of messages through Kik, but the timing never worked out for most, except for one. She was 50, and I was 25. Anyway, I went to her apartment, and she started going on and on about her ex-flatmate being crazy and leaving threatening voice messages. She even played them for me. All I could think was, I just want to shag and get out of here. Then she told me she had a partner who was in prison, and showed me a picture of him. At that point, I thought, I'm in too deep to turn back now. So anyway, the banging happens. No kissing was allowed. She kept saying things like she was in her 20s when I was born and all this crap. Anyway, the deed was done, and then the cops showed up at her door because she'd complained about her crazy ex-flatmate while I hid in the bedroom waiting for them to leave. Eventually, I was about to head out and she kept saying I could come over anytime, blah blah. I deleted her number, went to work, and never spoke to her again. Story 8. It was tough getting a match at first, but after 7 months of chatting with women in their 50s, I finally connected with someone named Francesca. She had a 32-inch waist and wore a triple D bra. I know it sounds unbelievable, but seeing her felt like witnessing a miracle. What followed was a 5-day pound fest in which we banged 32 times, and once my dong was just stuck in for 4 hours, and we had to marinate it in ranch dressing to loosen it and get it out. My IP address was being tracked by the police though, and on the 6th day we were paid a visit by Carolina and Chantal, who came to arrest me, but I said, F the police, and ended up banging all 3 of them till my dong gave up, popped out, and I had to get a replacement dong. Lesson learnt. Story 9. 30 years ago, the hot momshell found me one day when I was out training on my bike, back in my bike racing days. She just pulled up alongside me while I was riding and basically said, "You look real good in that spandex," then asked if I'd like to follow her and bang her. Good God, she was a frigging beautiful Italian woman with a nearly endless appetite for banging. It was like winning the 20-year-old male fantasy lottery. I thought that sort of thing didn't happen in real life. Until it happened to me. Turns out, she was also the manager of the local seafood restaurant, so she'd literally feed me, bang me, then kick me out. At that time, I could basically eat a functionally unlimited amount of food every day and was ravenously hungry almost all the time. So, it was pretty much the best thing ever when you're training 25 to 40 hours a week on the bike. I didn't own a car for this 6-year stretch. So, sure, I could spend 1 to 3 hours a day, 3 to 4 times a week banging and eating before or after for about an hour, often while looking in the mirror and hearing her compliment how frigging hot we looked the whole time. She was my summer mamma mia. I've never in my life had a stomach so full and balls so empty. Ah, to be 20 again. Story 10. I've done this twice now, and both times left me feeling really awful about myself. First time, I met this woman on Tinder. She was about 20 years older than me, extremely attractive and incredibly charming. We went on one date, and it was amazing. She ended up inviting me back to her place. All her kids were home. Things started heating up between us, and we were going at it, but then the kids began banging on the door. She quickly got dressed and went to check on them. I threw my clothes on, slipped out the side door, and called an Uber. Second time, I met this woman who was looking for younger guys to plow her on camera. This was quite a while ago. I'm pretty sure it was through Craigslist. As it turns out, she was a moderately successful corn actress, though calling her a star would be a stretch, but that was her line of work. She was in her 50s, and I was around 21 at the time. She came over to my place to see if we said it'd be a good fit. The banging was wild, honestly, but the whole situation left me feeling pretty gross, because it was clearly an audition. Story 11. My buddy was always raving about wanting to bang older women. I think it's because he watched so much hot momshell corn when he was a teen. Now he's in his early 20s. After a breakup, he decided to go down to what's known as the Cougar bar, which is really just a higher-end restaurant bar sort of place with a reputation. He asked me to come along and even offered to buy my drinks, so I agreed. Sure enough, he started getting attention almost immediately. It wasn't long until he was off talking to a group of 4 ladies in tiny dresses while I chilled with my beer and played on my phone. I didn't have to play wingman, which was a relief. An hour had passed, and he came by to tell me he had locked it down and was leaving to smash. I saw the woman and she was honestly quite beautiful. Blonde, about 5'4", with a tanned and curvy body and slim waist. Probably late 40s. He told me I should try my luck, but I went home. The next morning he comes home and tells me his story. First of all, he got grossed out because her body didn't look like the women he saw in corn. There were a lot of fat bulges. His words that he didn't know were a thing. He claimed that the dress she was wearing morphed her real figure, which I found hard to believe. Then he said it was a lot more hairy than he expected. He kept getting excited, but then something would turn him off. So basically he spent an hour making out and trying to wake his lil guy up, but couldn't do it. The woman was hurt, so he spent another 2 hours consoling her. At the end she made them a midnight steak dinner, and they just went to sleep. He said he is undeterred and wants to try again sometime soon. Story 12. I used to work at this auto shop for aftermarket car parts. We would get female clients from time to time. This momshell that walked in, I would say, was a total 7 out of 10. We would get moms from time to time, but I respected them all. Really didn't think much of it. A lot of moms would come into the shop for their kids, so it wasn't too unusual. Anyway, she turns to me and says, "Hey, I just got my tittywinks pierced, check it out." She had huge jugs, and honestly, the whole time I was at the shop with her, the tension was intense. Side note, we were alone in the shop, and knowing what I know now, I probably could have just whipped it out and she would have polished it off. But anyway, we made some small talk, and then she gave me her number. That's when I knew I had her. I called her later that night. She literally played hard to get for about 2 or 3 minutes on the phone. By the time I got to her apartment, her kid was asleep, and I knew it was on. We banged for about 3 hours off and on. I was like 19 maybe, and she was around 30. She would call me at times asking me to come over and bang her and always compliment me and my performance. I would sometimes just stop by for a blowy and leave. Either way, it was one of the highlights of my intimate encounters. Eventually, I got bored of it and moved on to other girls and would only bang her here and there. I have no idea what happened to her, but she was a frigging freak, and I enjoyed every bang with her. She just needed attention. Story 13. I once found a woman who was 15 years older than me. I was 26 and she was 41. She had 2 kids and had been married 3 times. I started banging her the second night we hung out, and she soon told me she was really attracted to me and had strong feelings. I spent more time with her and started developing feelings for her as well. I tried to break things off to date someone my own age, but during our break, she ended up banging one of my friends. We got back together after a short while and dated for another 4 years or so. She's turning 51 this summer, and honestly, I'm glad I'm not with her anymore. I've since found someone my own age, no multiple marriages, no kids, and I couldn't be happier. That said, she definitely knew how to bang. Story 14. When I was 21, I met a 40-year-old woman at a nightclub. Half drunk, I decided to dance with her, and it went really well. After hanging out for a little while, my friends were ready to leave, so I asked for her number. She said I was too young for her, so I laughed and gave her my number instead. Then I said the stupid frigging line that actually worked, something like, "Next week, when you're bored, think about 21-year-old me and give me a call." Well, about 2 weeks later, she sent me a text saying she wanted to hang out. So, we went to Buffalo Wild Wings, had a couple of beers and some wings, then went back to her place to watch Netflix and chill. I was so nervous the entire time that I never made a move. After we finished the movie, she looked at me and said, "So, did you come over here just to watch TV?" At 3 o'clock, she literally opened the door, the falling door, so we did. It was a different experience for me at the time because it felt more like she was banging me than I was banging her, if that makes sense. Her son came home from college in the morning, so I had to dip out the back door. I think he was around 24. Story 15. This happened during the unforgettable year when my best friend and I were both single. He had just come out of a 5-year relationship, and I would start dating my current girlfriend a year later. We went to an after-party and immediately noticed there was an unbelievable number of momshells there, and since he'd always been into that, he wasted no time and banged with one in the bathroom. He told me a ton of stories that made me want to try hooking up with one myself, so we ended up going to the same after-party the following week. That's when I met a really nice lady, 45, beautiful, with the body of a 20-year-old. We made out in the bathroom, and then she invited me back to her place. Her phone was dead, so she couldn't order an Uber. I offered to pay for it and asked for her address, and that's when I found out she lived right next to me. That club was like 3 cities away from our town, so that was a huge coincidence. The problem was, I was so drunk that I didn't really think or care. I just went. When we got to her place, she lived in the apartment right next to mine at the time. I realized her daughter was home, and I frigging knew her. We used to chat a lot when we were walking our dogs. Her drunk mom doesn't realize that we know each other, and that it's really awkward, so she informs her daughter that we're gonna bang, don't bother us. At this point, I would run away, but my brain gave up on me, so we did it. It was fine, we were a bit too drunk. I never spoke to her daughter again. She started walking through different paths with her dog to avoid me. Thank God I don't live there anymore. Story 16. Here's how you actually encounter hot momshells in your area looking to bang with you. 1. Be a friendly, upbeat, and devoted father and husband with no interest in infidelity. 2. Have an oblivious wife who brags at neighborhood girls' nights about how handy you are. You may find yourself summoned for a surprising number of emergency home repairs, more frequent than expected, where the root cause somehow always involves a wine corkscrew. Story 17. Well, I've dipped into the momshell pond a few times over my last 10 years. It started when I finally got away from a toxic home, alcohol and verbal abuse accumulating during my childhood. I crashed at my sister's place, and her neighbor, who was also her coworker, had just broken up with her boyfriend. Within a month, I had become the boy toy to a freaky 36-year-old mom with 3 kids. I was just 20. This all started in the summer of 2010, and pretty much every other girl I hooked up with turned out to be a single mother. Sometimes I found out the day after, other times they told me up front, thinking it would be a deal breaker. Me? I was just happy to finally have a good, active, intimate life. Plus, they were experienced and didn't mind skipping the protection, which was an extra turn-on for me. This theme kept recurring for me, earning me a bit of a reputation among my friends, all in good fun, until the time I even ended up in bed with the younger sister of one of them. I'm now in my 30s, have moved to a new city, and started a new job. It took no less than 3 months for a colleague and me to develop feelings for each other. She was married at the time, with 2 kids, who were almost teenagers. She's not married anymore, and now I'm trying to do the right thing since I'm basically the reason behind their divorce. Her husband started noticing she was always in a better mood after work, which became harder to hide as time went on. Eventually, we did end up in bed. She had been neglected in more ways than one, and had just realized what a good intimate life could be like, the kind where you grip the sheets and can't get enough. My takeaway after all this time? Enjoy it while you can, and try not to overcomplicate things, because it can just as quickly turn around and bite you in the butt. But she's also made me feel more appreciated, more attractive, and boosted my self-confidence during a time in my life when I probably needed it the most. Stay classy. Hot mom shells are meant to be enjoyed, not rushed. Story 18. Okay, so this is a serious momshell story, and I've never been able to tell anyone except my close friends, but we all grew up and eventually forgot about it. This happened around 4 or 5 years ago. Sorry, I can't remember the exact date. My family and I lived in an apartment complex in a kinda ghetto area for about 3.5 years. It was just my mother, my younger sister, and me. We got to know the apartment manager pretty well because she became really good friends with my mom and sister. As a result, my sister and I ended up spending a lot of time in her office and apartment. Quick description of her. Her name was Aida, in her late 30s, with a nice, thick body. She was about 5 feet 7 inches tall, had medium-length straight hair, and was from Panama. She always looked nicely tanned, not orange, and had an okay back with better chesticles. I'm 5 feet 11, Mexican, and I'd like to think I'm pretty good looking, but no soccer player physique. I'm more of a thick boy. Okay, so one night, Aida loved to party in her apartment with her sister, some friends, and her husband. Her husband was out of the state for a while, so she decided to throw a party. I lived just a door down from her office, and I was outside when I saw her, drunk as hell and having a great time, rocking some jean shorts and shaking her hair from side to side as the door shut behind her. My friends and I were outside joking around, and about an hour later she came out looking for her dog, but she was pretty drunk and couldn't find it. Everyone was just staring at her. Since I knew her well and someone told me to stop her before she wandered into the street, I grabbed her hand and said I'd help look for the dog. She pushed me away and said, "I need you to get away from me." When I asked why, she replied, "Because I said I'm drunk and horny, and I might end up banging you." The only reason I still remember this is because of how forward and hot she said it. No joke. I just stood there like a deer in headlights for a couple of seconds, before snapping back to reality and deciding to get her to go back inside. I said, "Aida, stop, I'll go." But before I could finish, she grabbed my shirt, pulled me down, as she fell backward and started making out with me. I didn't really want it to end, but I knew people were watching, so I had to play it cool and act like I didn't like it. Then she grabbed my hand, pulled me toward the far end of the apartments, and gestured for me to come closer with her finger. I just stood there hoping someone would come and break us up. Luckily, someone did. They separated us, helped her back inside, and I went back to my friends. They started talking, saying they couldn't believe what she did, and what I'd told them. Mind you, she was still a momshell and had a daughter. They joked that I wouldn't sleep with her even if I could. And I started getting bold, saying stuff like, "Bet I will." That kind of took over me. About 10 minutes later, she came out of her house and joined us, talking to all of us and saying some pretty slutty things. One of my friends asked if she was going to bang one of the guys inside her place, and she looked right at me and said, "No, I'm trying to bang your sexy friend right there," while winking and licking her upper lip. Honestly, I'd never been flirted with like that before, and I loved it. It made me feel confident, and I just wanted to stuff her with my dong. Sometime later, my friend and I ended up outside with her. I honestly forgot how it happened. She asked my friend if he wanted any snacks and mentioned she had cookies. He said yes and went to grab some from the cabinet. I walked up behind her, and something in my head just said, "Screw it." As she grabbed the cookies, I wrapped my arms around her and felt how warm she was. She took a deep breath, then handed the cookies to me to give to my friend. I passed them along, and right after that, she pulled me closer again, but this time, she sat up on her kitchen counter. We started making out, and then she suddenly said out loud, "Feth," before grabbing me and running to her room, and we start doing it like friggin' rabbits. Afterward, we took a shower and cleaned up. I could have stayed the night and gone for round 2, but I decided not to. Believe it or not, this really happened to me. And honestly, I'm glad it did. It's something I'll never forget. Story 19. There are actually real girls chatting with you on some sites. My ex-girlfriend did one of those live chat things for a while and showed me how it works. So you log into a site, and you assume a fake girl profile with fake profile pictures and fake personal info. You get assigned several dudes you can chat with at the same time, before they were assigned to you. Other girls had already been chatting with them. When you log in, you just have to continue the conversations that those girls started before you. You can see the chat log because you will have to continue the chat so that the dude doesn't suspect that you now are a different person. The point of all this is that you can work when you want. If you log off, another girl will take over. And if you log on, you take over from another girl. Every sentence must contain a minimum of words. So, no short answers like yes, no, or something like that. It has to be complete sentences. You get paid the more you write. If you do this a whole day, it's like minimum wage. If you do this long enough, you will get a pay upgrade. The dude has no idea he is chatting with different girls, all who uphold a fake profile. The dude will ask for pictures of you, and you have a gallery with pictures of a random girl that you can send to him. He will also send pictures to you. The dude will continuously ask for a meetup, and the rules are that you, as the girl, must give vague answers like, yeah, let's maybe meet up next week, and keep asking him questions. The goal here is to keep the dude in the chat as long as possible, for he is paying for every message. It's like telephone bang, but in text form. Forgot to mention that you chat with several dudes simultaneously this way, and since people keep asking, yes, you can be a guy behind the fake profile. Sorry for not mentioning this earlier. Story 20. So, obviously they're fake, 100% just a scam designed to steal your credit card information or charge you for things. Sometimes you can access the sites without entering any info, but most will eventually try to bribe you or block you from continuing unless you pay. As for the local momshells, they're either robots running a programmed conversation that's really just a few questions followed by buy premium to meet with me, or someone who's seriously determined to get you to click the link they sent so you can meet up for some sexy time. Angie really isn't 8 miles away looking for big dong. She's just a guy with a fake website targeting some gullible people. They'll also use your email to share with other services that spam you non-stop with messages claiming women with unique names like Sarah, Jennifer, or Laura want to bang. Before you know it, your mailbox is flooded with non-stop sexual telemarketing. Story 21. Not exactly a hot momshell in your area story, but about 15 years ago I signed up for a matchmaking website. I'll be honest, part of me did it for craps and giggles, but I figured if something good came from it, so be it. Anyway, you couldn't specify a certain age, but you could mention that you were open to a relationship with someone older, which I did. I was 27 at the time. So imagine my surprise when I got a meetup request from a 33-year-old woman. 5 years might not sound like much, but believe me, she was way ahead of me. We met up at a nice cafe and talked for a while. It was a pretty uneventful night. She was nice, looked great, and I think she thought the same of me, because even though it wasn't anything spectacular, she agreed to a second date. I wanted to impress her, so I suggested a karaoke bar with a relaxed vibe. I pulled out my best repertoire, and that seemed to do the trick, because we really hit it off. She told me she was divorced, had recently split from her marriage, and was living with her dad and her little girl. She seemed to think I'd run the other way because she had a daughter, but I was totally fine with it. On our next date, she invited me to the movies, and I'm sure you'll understand when I say I don't remember a single thing about the film. Things were pretty good. I didn't have to interact with her dad or her kid. She'd call me when she had the time, and I spent a couple of nights at her place. Then the first incident happened. We were going at it in her bed, huffing and puffing, so to speak, when out of the blue she asks me to sing to her, right then, right in her ear. I thought she was joking, but the way her eyes locked onto mine, like she was staring into my soul, made it clear she wasn't. Sing me now. So I did. I tried not to overthink it, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't weird me out for a while, until I eventually almost forgot about it. Then the second incident happened. One night, We were heading back to her place when she suddenly went livid and yanked me off to the side, almost into an alleyway. I was confused but waited quietly until she calmed down. That's when she admitted she hadn't been entirely honest about the whole divorce situation. They weren't living together anymore, but they were still legally married, and he was trying to patch things up. Oh, and according to her, he also had a gun and a bad temper. There was no third incident, nor another date. Story 22. This was about 15 years ago. I was chatting on MRC and started talking to an older woman. We were just having a casual conversation. Turns out, we had both recently moved to a new city. She mentioned that she lived in an area where most of the men were gay and joked that she was all alone because of it. She never directly mentioned anything sexual, but she did invite me over to help fix her computer and suggested we grab dinner, so it definitely felt like it was headed in that direction. I planned to meet her once, but ended up not going, and over time we just faded out of contact. She had sent me a low-quality photo, and all I ever knew was her first name and the initial of her last name. She's always remained a bit of a fantasy for me. I've always preferred older women, and she was a full-bodied woman who really fit that ideal. I remember her telling me her son was studying in the US at the time, so she was living alone. Anyway, I always wondered what became of her, and about 10 years later, I decided to look her up. Thanks to some Google skills, I found out she has her own website and is actually a well-known writer and editor. I even came across her on YouTube. I couldn't help but think I could have had that. Then I watched her last YouTube video where she performed at a local comedy night where people shared stories about their dating lives. Being a well-known writer, she delivered her bit in a poetic style, mocking herself and her experiences with dating older men. And then, guess what? She actually mentioned me in her tribute. It was both hilarious and surreal. She said, "Such is my luck. Found a guy to fog. He went shy on chat. Perhaps found me too fat." There was another reference in there that totally confirmed it was about me. It was wild, honestly. Now, she will always remain in my fantasy. Story 23. Not me, but my cousin, funnily enough. He told me this while we were out drinking in Gran Canarias. By the time he was 21, he'd gotten seriously ripped. 2 years of hard work had transformed him from a regular 19-year-old into someone who partied often, banging a lot of women, and generally had become pretty experienced when it came to women. One night, a woman who knew his parents back from high school, she was about 46, had been out drinking with her husband and some mutual friends in the area. While her husband stayed behind, playing pool and tossing back beers with the guys, she decided to head home early. So, my cousin was walking home, just drunk enough to be smooth and charming when he bumped into her at a bus stop. She was waiting alone, and they struck up a conversation that clicked surprisingly well. One thing led to another, and she ended up walking home with him. According to him, things escalated quickly. He gave me a play-by-play of at least 10 different positions, and some of the most hilariously bold dirty talk I've ever heard. They then banged pretty intensely all night in his parents' house. The next morning, his mom, my aunt, walked in on them while they were still asleep. Thankfully, she only saw the back of the woman's head before realizing her son had company and quietly shut the door. Story 24. This was some time ago. I had just turned 21 and went out at the stroke of midnight to get hammered. Once I recovered from the worst hangover I've ever had, I decided it would be a safe move to hang out with my parents since they had a company party at a local pub. My stepmom told me, "Hey, have whatever you want to drink, it's your birthday." Well, apparently, I didn't learn my lesson from the night before and decided to start taking some tequila shots. As I scouted the pub, I realized there wasn't really anyone near my age. I felt out of place and didn't know anyone, so I kept to myself. Then my stepmother told me there was a girl who wanted to dance with me. I was like, wait, someone close to my age? With enough liquid courage, I got up and met her. Damn, she was a sexy Latina, petted body, beautiful full lips, nice long slender legs. I'm 6'1", and she had to be around 5'9". I danced with her for a bit. Though I was a horrible dancer, we managed to chat a little, and I found out she was 27, worked with my stepmom, and was a psychology major. After a few more drinks, we ended up outside in the parking lot making out for a while until my dad went to his car to get something and saw us. That's when we decided to go somewhere else to have more fun. Once we were done, we went back inside, had a few more drinks, and danced some more. We exchanged numbers, said goodbye at the end of the night, and my parents had to take my drunk ass home. Well, the conversation during the drive home was entertaining. Dad told my stepmom about the makeout session he saw. She just giggled. I asked my mom about her and she said, "Oh, she's a 38-year-old nurse, recently single." Then she gave me this look and asked, "What else did you two do?" I looked at my dad with my drunken face, gave him a wink, and he nodded back. Story 25. A few years ago, I accidentally clicked an ad on my phone's touchscreen while using a dating website. It redirected me to one of those hot mom shells in your area sites. Figured it was a scam, but I wanted to see where it would lead, because I'm a troll. Anyway, banging is literally the least likely outcome from clicking one of those links. You'd have a better chance of getting laid by visiting Home Depot or Walmart, or simply by being a decent human around someone you're interested in. What happens is, you're led to corno websites, something like Adult Friend Finder. Each site is basically the same. Bots bombard the login with request after request. Lewd pictures keep coming through. It's all phishing, and there's actually someone listening on the other end, which is hilarious. Soon afterward, you'll get more ads, or a profile will contact you claiming they're in your area. If you agree to meet based on the location from your profile, the other user will ask you to meet somewhere nearby for sexy time. But you can't just show up. They'll request you buy gift cards, and that's the scam. The location the other account gave me was real. One account asked me to meet at a hotel in my area, but the location was actually a seasonal campsite. There was no hotel there whatsoever. Another account requested I show up at a residence nearby. I drove to the location, and there was a real house. I never approached it. I figured the house was either a police trap, a random residence, or that I wouldn't have a good time if I went inside. I wondered if the two places were connected, or if someone in the area was running the scam. Maybe it was the local webmaster. I thought it might be the police, but figured I probably would have been approached by someone, and I never was. Just so you know, I never bought the gift cards. I blocked the email accounts and canceled the credit cards I used during that adventure. Disclaimer: don't attempt this. You won't get laid. You will lose money just by trying to see what happens. Unsavory folks will get your information. Make sure you have two-step security on your accounts and cancel any debit or credit cards involved. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.